Well, I think what was surprising to me is that he almost has Tourette's syndrome. I mean, he will do the most bizarre things. I mean, he's out there to humiliate people. It seems to me what he thinks is high jinks actually is very often very cruel.
Mr. Loney, today we're here to talk about your new book entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York, about Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, his ex-wife, Duchess of York. Some of the adjectives used by sources to describe Andrew in your book are arrogant, lazy, stupid, entitled. What did you gather from his personality and character on your research?
Well, that the child was father of the man, that the boy who was described as all those things, it was very similar as an adult, naive, to not always very trusting of other people, pompous, very much put emphasis on his status, searching for a sense of identity. So yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, one of the advantages of doing a biography is you get a sense of the development of a person, their journey. And the striking thing with Andrew is the journey is very similar all the way through. There are all sorts of points where perhaps he could have made different decisions, wiser decisions, and he doesn't. So, as people said who were his contemporaries, this was an accident waiting to happen. It's no surprise it took so long for the scandals to emerge and for him to fall from grace. But he was protected. There was a very carefully curated line, the blue-eyed, handsome second son of the Queen, the war hero, and all this other stuff was covered up and people didn't talk about it. And it's only now, after the scandals of Epstein and elsewhere, particularly his time as special representative, that these stories are now emerging.
There are quite a few interesting anecdotes about Andrew in this book, about how badly he could treat people and how he dealt with women, about his vulgar sense of humor. Which ones stood out the most to you or were the most surprising to you?
Well, I think what was surprising to me is that he almost has Tourette's syndrome. I mean, he will do the most bizarre things. I mean, he's out there to humiliate people. It seems to me what he thinks is high jinks actually is very often very cruel. I mean, my favorite story, which gives us some sense of just how detached he is from reality, is when he was delayed on a train journey. This is a story at the end of the book. And he only had to wait an hour in the VIP waiting room, but he sort of looked around, he noticed there were other trains there, and he said, well, why can't that train take me to Birmingham? Everything is focused around his own interests. And other members of the royal family don't behave like that. There's an extreme form of narcissism there. I think also just the brazenness with which he would, for example, on these special representative visits, ask his private secretary to provide women for him. The fact that he asked ambassadors to shoehorn particular visits for his business pals to meet, that he was so rude to everyone. And if he got bored with an event, he would just give up and leave. And he wouldn't go and talk to the people he was supposed to talk to, and he wouldn't read his brief. And in fact, he would often do exactly the opposite of what he was supposed to do. So, I mean, all this is really bizarre behavior. I mean, I've never come across anyone quite so odd. So I think that was one thing. I think the other surprising thing was just how much money the two of them were making off their royal backgrounds. So particularly Sarah Ferguson, not just as a brand ambassador, but giving talks and appearing on shows and things that she always charged for. So they made a lot of money, but they kind of wasted it and spent it. I mean, just that life of extravagance is also so bizarre. It's like Marie Antoinette has returned in the 21st century.
There's a lot about his tantrums in this book. And I've read other royal biographies. There are stories about King Charles acting angry, being rude as well, having outbursts over simple things. Less than Andrew, I suppose. But in essence, they seem to be really out of touch, detached from reality even. Would you say this is a product of not being disciplined ever, not having parents around, and being pampered, not having someone to say, no, this isn't nice, for their whole lives.
Yes, I think there is an element of that. I mean, Andrew is part of the second family. He's 10 years younger than his older sister, 12 years younger than Charles. And, for the first 5 years of his life, he was in effect an only child. And I think this is when, character clearly is shaped. And all the things that you've said, no boundaries, no discipline, being spoilt, and then, of course, his younger brother, Edward, comes along, who's a very different character, much sweeter by temperament, much sweeter, less boisterous, more academic. And I think, it's being a bit like the younger child of a two-child family. Clearly there are lots of families where the genes just get distributed in slightly different ways, and one is very different from the other. And this is one of those cases. But I think some of it is the fact that he really wasn't set any boundaries or any proper discipline. And the parents were, despite their claims of being hands-on, I think they were pretty absent. I mean, we see the character shaped very much in those early years. But Edward turns out to be, absolutely charming, public service. Everyone likes him. Very, very different story. And I think the other problem is a bit like with Harry. Andrew marries someone who doesn't bring out the best in him, in fact, reinforces all his worst characteristics in the way that Meghan does with Harry. Whereas I think, Kate marrying William and Sophie marrying Edward in some ways brought out their best characteristics. So it just shows the importance of picking your partner.